I believe that we all came from love, that we came to this earth, that we existed before this earth, and that we came from love and we're returning to love and we are love. And that this life, with all of its trouble, is a gift. And everything that we go through, we intended, we made commitments, and then we come here to solve these problems, to perfect our soul and make more of us. So I think my son Perry is perfect. I think that he is on a very difficult path, but it's a path that he chose for his benefit. And I fully expect him to win. And if he doesn't this trip, I expect he'll have to repeat it.
Yeah, it's all part of the journey. I'm here today with Jeff Hayes, and Jeff Hayes is an award-winning filmmaker, author, television producer since the early 1990s. He gained national attention with the documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, and he has since produced many documentaries, and he has partnered with Patrick Gentempo to create Revealed Films. Together, they have released many multi-part docuseries covering subjects including health and nutrition, medical issues, wealth building, religious, and political topics. These include Money Revealed, Vaccines Revealed, Crypto Revealed, GMOs Revealed. They're currently working on a series to include the use of psychedelics in therapy, Psychedelics Revealed. And they have completed filming for a series on addiction, Addiction Revealed, which I'm going to ask you more about that during the interview. In addition to the Revealed projects, Jeff Hayes Films was the executive producer for The Fix, a documentary series based on Johann Hari's New York Times bestseller, Chasing the Scream, which was made into an Academy Award nominated film and an 8-part TV series presented by Samuel L. Jackson. Jeff resides in the mountains of Utah with the love of his life, Dory. They work out of Jeff Hayes Films soundstage and studio in Midvale, Utah. Together, they have 11 children and many, many grandchildren, I would imagine.
Yes.
However, today, we're not going to necessarily talk about films or documentaries. Today, we're going to talk about Jeff's connection to addiction. Specifically, his daughter is struggling with addiction, and he's going to talk about his experience as a parent. The hope is that his experience will help another parent out there that is struggling. Jeff, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. And the one correction is I have a son who's an addict, not a daughter.
My mistake. And what is your son's name?
Perry.
Perry. Okay. We're going to get into Perry here in a second. But first, what is it like to be the parent of 11 children?
So it's fascinating. And I'm not really the parent of 11 children. I raised 9 kids. And then Dory and I married, and she had 2 kids. So when it comes to Christmas and birthdays, we've got 20 something grandkids and 11 kids that we buy, so literally my assistant has a spreadsheet and there's an assembly line for birthdays. We're talking like 35 birthdays a year that have to be accommodated. So we get credit for them. But I had 4 kids with my first wife, and then got divorced and got custody of the kids, and then remarried a woman and adopted her kids and got divorced. And we had a son who passed away, and Perry ended up staying with us for several years. And so I kind of collected kids. And then I married a woman with 3 kids, and we were married for 15 years, and we raised them all from small to grown up. And so at one point we had 8 kids in the house, and that means you have to run it like an army. When kids come in, they put their backpack on the back of a chair, and they put their coat on the other arm of the chair. If you've got 8 kids doing that, you have no chairs. And so it's a different setup, and it was wonderful. And it was probably, I don't know, I think right now is the happiest time of my life, but it would compete with that chaos was also the happiest time of my life.
Woo, man, 11 kids. Did you see yourself having 11 kids when you were growing up? Did you always love kids? Did you see yourself having lots of kids?
It was the furthest thing from my mind. I grew up I had a sister, and it was 2 kids, and that seemed normal to me. That was my family of origin.
Yeah.
And this was a delightful surprise. And What I was really surprised about is I loved raising teenagers, and everybody talks about how hard teenagers are.
Hmm.
Um, I found teenagers to be great. My mentor used to tell me, when you're investing in your children, you're investing in your own future happiness, and that
Hmm.
is really true. You've met my daughter Casey.
Yep.
That and this she's 40 years old. These are now some of the best friends I have in the world are my adult children.
That's so cool. Awesome. So, what specific incident inspired you to be so passionate about creating documentaries?
So when Michael Moore made the movie Fahrenheit 9/11, I thought it was a flawed documentary, but more it was a marketing exercise. I was already in the film business, but I'd never done a documentary. And the that film had so many flaws in it and so many things that violated kind of the rules of documentary filmmaking. But I felt like the Republicans at that time decided to ignore it, which was the right move, not give it press. It should have done about 20 million at the box office and gone away. But instead, it crossed the chasm and it did 100 million at the box office and didn't go away. And there was no response. So I stepped in and very quickly.
What were some of the rules? You said there were some major rules that were broken. What were some of those major rules that were broken?
Where there was several reports written of 28 basic flaws in the where he just told things that were not true.
Hmm.
And so a lot of the footage that he used in that, he didn't film. He bought the footage, he licensed it, and he would make a point and use a snippet of an interview that was completely opposite of what the person was saying, but use a section out of it to make his point. And
Hmm.
so, as opposed to documenting what was said, which is traditionally a documentary, a fly on the wall, a cinema
Right.
verite view, he had a specific agenda and he went out and found little clips that would argue just his case. And they were very easy to dismantle. So we made this film dismantling it. We got great reviews in the New York Times, in Variety. And the film, I sold it the day I finished it to overstock.com. It made me a millionaire in one day.
Wow.
Patrick Byrne at Overstock made sure that I personally became a millionaire from making that. So that film really excited me about documentaries. So the next year, I produced On Native Soil, which was the documentary of the 9/11 Commission report, and it was shortlisted for an Academy Award, and I was off to the races.
Wow. And when was that? What year?
2005.
Would you say that that was really when your career started to take off?
Yeah, we discovered some ways of producing films and releasing them ourselves where it put us in control of our own business, where normally a filmmaker makes a film and then has to figure out how to get it distributed. And we built our own distribution. And that was really what allows me to stay in the film business.
Gotcha. What was it like to create a documentary series on addiction when you were experiencing addiction firsthand with your son, Perry?
Yeah, so, with my interest in the subject, when I read the book Chasing the Scream by Johann Hari, and it's a controversial book because the book argues for not just the decriminalization, but the legalization of virtually all drugs. On its surface, it's like it's insane. We all want the same thing. We want less drug addiction. We want people to survive. And it goes through the history of the war on drugs and how the war on drugs has actually created more addicts, more death, more destruction. That it's kind of like communism. Communism is a great idea. The only problem with it, it just doesn't work.
Right.
And we've proven over and over the war on drugs doesn't work. And so this new model, it was a New York Times best-selling book. I bought the rights to it, and we did that series with Jeffrey Katzenberg's company. Anyone who wants to can watch it on Roku for free right now. You don't even have to sign up, no email, nothing. It's called The Fix. It's on Roku. If you go to Roku and just search for The Fix, and it's a very interesting thought experiment of what would happen. And And the fact is, it argues the case that everything we know about addiction is wrong. One of his key points, Johann's key points, is the opposite of addiction is connection. And this was revelatory for me because my son Perry has been a heroin addict for a decade. I mean, he's an old timer. It's like normally people don't survive that long.
Right, they don't.
And he's had every problem that comes with that, from being put in jail, from, forced rehabs, from all the things that, I went through the period early on of being taught tough love, and that made sense to me, tough love for for this guy.
Mhm.
And, and Johann's book softened my heart. And instead of withdrawing from Perry and um, projecting tough love, it kind of convinced me to just project love him. Even if he chooses to stay an addict, I will choose to continue to love him as he is. And so that evolution in my thinking of really stopping, not accepting him as he is, and loving him, and I can experience the pain that I see him go through, but I don't have to withdraw from him, which was really my previous mentality.
Right. It's like he's an addict, he's struggling. He doesn't want to be an addict. It's like people think that people want to be addicts. He doesn't want to be addicted. It's a sickness. It's just like having cancer. Like if someone has cancer, you don't shun them and push them away.
Yeah, this is, it's funny. This is such a fine line for me because I also see parents who will not let their adult children who are addicts, or their teenagers, will not let them suffer the consequences of their actions. And they interfere in life's natural processes. And it's not the child that can't suffer the consequence, it's the parent. And so I see people do too much. And this is, for me, is really a more of an emotional thing. So when we did the series on addiction, we did maybe 30 or 40 interviews with experts like that are in this series. And they don't all agree with one another. There's various approaches to this, but the biggest thing I learned from this series was that this expectation that somebody can stop being an addict in 28 days because that's what insurance pays for. I came to a realization that many people, their progression through recovery is a year, 2 years, 3 years. The question is, has the person changed, and have they changed, externally? I've watched Perry was put on probation in Dallas, Texas,
Now,
at
how old is Perry right now?
35.
35, and he started using when he was 25 or younger?
Younger than that. And it started, he was a tennis player, and he had a tennis injury, and he took Loratab for his tennis injury. And Loratab I have taken, and its biggest effect on me is constipation. It didn't work as a painkiller. I didn't get
Right.
any fun from it. I would never take it recreationally just because it wasn't recreational for me.
Mhm.
Perry said the first time he took one, he felt like he was home.
All right.
There's something in him that was for him, and he migrated from that to other prescription drugs, and then finally to heroin. I remember one time years ago, I'm like, well, Perry, what are you using? He goes, Dad, I'm using everything.
Mhm.
And and he developed the skill of hustling, of where most of your addicts, that are really hardcore addicts like Perry, become, if they're men, drug dealers, and if they're women, prostitutes or drug dealers. It's like
Mhm.
there's not many ways to live that illegal lifestyle, and then also have your day job. And
Where is Perry at in the mix of 11 kids, 9 kids, 11 kids?
so he was, until I married a woman who had some younger kids, he was the youngest. And so, and it was also his brother, Charlie, who passed away from cancer. So at the
Mhm.
time, I remember that my therapist that had working with my kids as we were going through that, my therapist said Perry was 10 years old at the time. And he said, trust me, Perry will do whatever it takes to get the same attention from his mother that Charlie is getting right now, because
Mhm.
Charlie was dying of cancer.
Right.
Focus was all on him. And that prediction came to be true. And there's an odd dynamic between he and his mother that has played out.
And are any of your other kids addicted or struggling with drugs or alcohol?
So several of them have been through. I have a recovered addict who's my son, Mikey, who, if you have a black sheep in your family, you should be so lucky as to have a black sheep like Mikey. And he went through a serious period of addiction, and to the point that, I did not expect him to recover. And now he is a 41-year-old man with 6 kids
Wow.
and very successful in his work, and has gone the full progression of spending the time in 12-step groups to, years, to evolving past. He can't remember. I talked to him several years ago. He's like, I literally can't imagine the me I was that did that. It's like it's
Mhm.
just so foreign to him. I look at him as a graduate.
Right.
He's not locked into recovery. He's just living his life.
Right.
And
Right.
so he's a perfect example. But with 11 kids, we're going to see a little bit of everything.
Mhm.
I've got a daughter who's a very active Mormon. It's like we've got
Uh,
the whole spectrum of this. What I was going to say earlier about Perry is, at one point he was arrested several years ago, and in order to not go to prison, he had to be drug tested on a daily basis for a year, and he was put on probation, and it was brutal. If he didn't make his phone call, if he wasn't at the, it was harsh. And he stayed clean for a solid year and avoided going to prison, got charges dismissed, everything was fine. And with a month after that ending, he was back using again.
mhm. Mhm.
And this is when I realized, it can be imposed on an addict, but the reality is he hadn't changed.
Right.
What is in him hasn't changed.
Right.
And so currently he is in rehab once again to avoid prison.
Mhm.
And he's been in rehab and clean since December, and he's
Okay.
doing fine. The question is that for him to answer is, has he has he changed? And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, well, as they say, it's an inside job. So it's the alcoholism, the drug addiction, the workaholism, the sex addiction. It's all just a symptom of the pain. And so it, he has to learn how to live life differently, learn how to handle situations differently. It's like we're all programmed to live life a certain way. And my belief when I first Oh, I think the statistics are less than 10% of people make it to a year of sobriety. People that do make it to a year, 67% of them have a chance of making it to 5 years. And then if you make it to 5 years, you have an 85% chance of making it for life. So I don't know where those statistics come from. I heard those many years ago, but I remember when I celebrated 5 years, everybody said, Congratulations, you're no longer a newcomer. And I was like, what are you talking about? I've been around forever. And and that's been my experience. It's like you got to make it to the 5 years. And it's kind of like learning how to live life differently, learning how to handle situations, that curveballs that get thrown. I mean, like I get curveballs thrown at me all the time, but I never have the desire to go out and drink or drug or find the solution. I mean, I guess I do look for the solution, but my solution these days are prayer, meditation, exercise, hiking, running, signing up for a triathlon, doing the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. I mean, I do things like that in order to, I guess, keep my sanity. And if
That's funny. The things you listed, and just right off the top of your head there, of your activities, in all of the interviews, this was because I did a series on anxiety and depression, and I did a series on happiness. So I had
Okay.
two different. Ben Greenfield was the host of the happiness series, the anxiety and depression, and I'm doing all these interviews, and I realized I was doing the same series over and over, and
Right.
it came out the same thing for the addiction series. The things that people do to stay healthy, hiking is like being out in nature is a
Yep.
big hiking, exercise, movement, connection with friends,
Yep.
your diet, your meditation, your moments with God, however you find them. These were the ingredients that the experts on the anxiety and depression series came up with as the cure for anxiety and depression. They were
Uh-huh.
the ingredients that our expert, a woman has a PhD in happiness,
Yeah.
and these are her ingredients. And in our addiction series, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same interview all over again. These
Yeah.
are apparently these are the ingredients of a happy life.
Right.
It, it,
Right.
and then the alternative to not having connection, not moving your body, not getting in nature, not breathing, not meditating, it if you don't do those things, the results are addiction or anxiety and depression or lack of happiness.
Yeah. There's a book that Ned Hallowell recommended called, I think it's called The Good Life. And The Good Life, I mean, he talks about all those things, the laughter, joy, connecting with other humans, deep human connections, meaning not on the surface, meaning like real, vulnerable, open, honest, and exercise and fitness, not exercise and fitness, but I mean, body movement and eating the right foods and doing things to I guess, improve your health really is what it comes down to.
Yeah, these are actually the requirements for, I used to look at walking as that was what somebody who's too lazy to be a runner would do.
All right. Yeah.
And so because I was, the period of time I came up through, everything was about cardio and getting your heart rate up, which is all important. But it turns out walking is not for your heart rate so much as it is for your neurology.
Okay.
And as you move, as you walk, you take a step, you're literally going out of balance, falling forward, catching yourself with your foot, going out of balance, catching yourself.
Mhm.
That's the, and your proprioceptive system is on high alert. You're getting signals from the nerves in your feet, your legs, your arms, all signaling to your brain. And this signaling pathway stimulates every organ as it goes up. And so you're affecting your liver, your heart, your kidneys by the movement. And it's not just your cardiovascular system, it's your whole neurology. And this is why you look at walking improves 25% of all diseases, cancer, heart disease. Walking does it. It stimulates. And of course, they didn't our ancestors didn't have automobiles, for
Mhm.
thousands of years they averaged walking about 10 miles a day. It's the way the human body was built, and you remove that, things start falling apart internally, including your organs are not stimulated, but also your brain and your happiness. These are just kind of it's almost like we could get a little pamphlet together and say instructions for being human. By the way, because you have a human body, you're going to need to move, you're going to need to
Right.
be outdoors, you're going to need to breathe the bacteria that is in nature, to be healthy. It could be just a pamphlet, not even the Good Life book. A pamphlet, do these things, don't ask any questions, just trust me.
Yeah. So Dr. Ned Hallowell, the number one ADHD doctor in the world, you and I both know him from Genius Network. He said he'll prescribe a dog before he'll prescribe any sort of a medication. And I'm just, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about it. If you have a dog, you want to take your dog for a walk. And so that's just, I mean, walking is kind of the easiest thing that most anybody can do.
Well, you think about it, like, so it's not, if you have a dog, like I've had golden retrievers for years until our last one passed and we're taking a break. But the dog requires a walk. It's smart enough to know. The other thing that your dog will do, if you leave it on its own in the house, when the sun is streaming through the window, the dog will go over and lay where the sun is on its body.
Yeah.
And the dog knows exactly what the requirements of being a dog are.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it wants to go outside and smell things, and it wants sun on its body, and it wants movement. And somehow we lost connection with our own inner soul, our own inner, if you just listen to it, you want the exact same things.
Yeah. Yeah, I have an Aussie Doodle. His name's Wayne, and his favorite thing to do, or one of his favorite. I mean, he's got lots of favorite things to do. He likes to go out in the backyard. He likes to smell around. He likes to chase rabbits. He likes to chase birds. But he'll sit there in the sun. He'll walk outside and he'll just lay down right in the sun and
Yep.
just hang out. He just loves it. I mean,
If I left my front door open, my dog would walk out on the porch and lay in the sun and just be there, because and there's the intelligence of that is, we should pay attention to. So I'm just struck with the simplicity of the instructions for life as we look at addiction is such a complex, when Joe Polish started, I'm going to find the cure for addiction. And this was a decade ago. And I don't know anybody who has tried harder to unravel a quote cure for addiction than Joe. And after it's all said and done, there are some very simple, not solutions, very simple additions that can help while we address all of the childhood trauma and the issues that are driving somebody to be doing things that are self-destructive.
in my experience is that people that are trying to stop doing drugs, like, oh, I just got to stay sober today. I just got to stay clean today. I just got to not use today. Those are the people that don't make it. The people that make it, and this is kind of what you were speaking to earlier, the people that are living their best life, the people that are out doing things. It's not because I'm trying to stay sober. It's because I want to live a happy life. So I'm going to connect with other humans. I'm going to frequent places like here in Phoenix. I love to go to Optimize, which is a wellness community. I like to go to F45. That's where I work out. I love to do yoga. So I'm around people and I'm doing activities that I love doing. And those are the things that lead me to being happy. And I don't feel the need to go drink or use. I don't need the solution, because my solution is human connection and body movement.
So I mentioned childhood trauma, and there's the adverse childhood events study, the ACE study from the CDC. It predicts with staggering accuracy. It's 10 questions, 5 things that would have happened to you and 5 things that you have seen. And if you're at 6 or 7 or 8 on this ACE score, then it predicts the early death. It predicts, whether you'll be in jail or not. It predicts drug addiction. It is staggeringly accurate. My sister is the founding editor-in-chief of a medical journal from Nature magazine called the Adversity and Resilience Science Journal. She has a $22 million grant from the NIH where she's studying childhood trauma and resilience. And they created something instead of ACEs that called PACEs, which are preventatory and compensatory experiences that you can do to to make up for childhood events. But I've come to believe, I know in my life, my mom died when I was 11, and I made some decisions as an 11-year-old to lock up my heart that I did not, through all the therapy, through all the work I went through, I did not make a dent in that wall until I was 61 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was through a medical guided procedure using DMA
Mm-hmm.
that that wall evaporated in that first session. And I continued to dismantle it um, every 3 months. And so for 3 years, I did MDMA twice with ketamine and once with psilocybin. I did it every 3 months. I haven't done it for a year. I may never do it again. I think I reached a point of diminishing returns. But I actually wrote a book about it called Love and Drugs. I've got a book coming out from HarperCollins this year in June on entrepreneurship, and I have to wait for 6 months after that book before I'm allowed to release Love and Drugs. But for me, resolving my profound childhood trauma, and I say resolving it as far as I can.
Right.
Today is the anniversary. My mom died on this day, April 7th,
Wow.
54 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so my sister and I talked this morning. I'll read you a text from her. This is an interesting diversion. She says, a little message for both of us that popped up on my Facebook feed this morning. Love you. So the message was, the committee weighs in. I tell my mother I've won the Nobel Prize. Again, she says, which discipline this time? It's a little game we play. I pretend I'm somebody. She pretends she isn't dead.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so, this day, so I say, resolving the childhood trauma, there's still childhood trauma besides that one event, but
Mm-hmm.
even around that event. But literally, I was not able to go forward with an open heart until I resolved some some childhood wounds and I think underlying all addiction is the basic thought that as I am not enough.
Mm-hmm.
These are decisions that are usually made under the influence of childhood trauma. And my hope is for my son Perry is that he can do these things that we talk about, like walking and moving and yoga and connections and mentorship and love and breathing, and to keep himself functional while he works on the underlying issues that we all have to deal with. I believe that we all came from love, that
Mm-hmm.
we came to this earth, that we existed before this earth. We came from love. When we released the world, we were met with the lie of this world, which is you're not loved and you're all alone. And our job is to remember who we really are, and that we came from love and we're returning to love and we are love. And that this life, with all of its trouble, is a gift. And everything that we go through, we intended, we made commitments, and then we come here to solve these problems, to perfect our soul and make more of us. So I think my son Perry is perfect. I think that he is on a very difficult path, but it's a path that he chose for his benefit. And I fully expect him to win. And if he doesn't this trip, I expect he'll have to repeat it.
Yeah. It's all part of the journey. And I think as you're talking, I'm just thinking about fulfillment. We all want love and fulfillment. We all want to be happy. And the reason why we do the things that we do, the reason why we lie, cheat, steal, use is because we want happiness, which is full fulfillment. But the lie, cheat, and steal, we think that gets us to happiness, but it really doesn't get us to happiness. It gets us happy for like for 3 seconds.
Right.
And then there's a drop off, and that leads to the emptiness and the guilt and the shame, which leads to us needing the solution, which is the drink, the drug, the acting out, etc.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar's brother, Judge Ziglar, we used to know 40 years ago. And he told me that his phrase was, the mind says happy, the heart says peace.
The mind says happy, the heart says peace.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, given your childhood trauma, and you didn't resolve that until, or the best you could, until you were 61 years old, how did you ever struggle with drugs or alcohol or any other sort of process addictions like workaholism?
So I think we're all addicted in one form or another. The you know, I remember being so depressed when I learned to get off of sugar. I thought, okay, I'm going to do 30 days with no sugar.
Uh-huh.
And then I read some research that shows it takes about 2 years to break a sugar addiction. There's
Mhm.
chemical changes, that enzymes that have to be created. It's a long, slow process.
Right.
I remember when I was 30, I quit smoking cigarettes. And it was for a year and a half after I quit smoking cigarettes. If you'd have woken me up in the middle of the night and said, "Are you a smoker?" I would have said yes. I was an
Mhm.
abstaining non-smoker.
Okay.
And then after about a year and a half, I suddenly one day went, I can't believe I ever did that. There was a switch that
Yeah.
flipped, but that switch wasn't flipped in 21 days, and it wasn't
Mm.
flipped in 60 days. I was an abstaining smoker for a solid year and a half before became a non-smoker. So I've been off and on addicted to things my whole life. My reaction though to childhood trauma was less addiction and more that I had hardened my heart. I decided that
Mhm.
everybody I loved died, and
Mhm.
and that it was way too risky. And so I never fully loved anyone until I realized that love needs no protection. We talk about love, God is love,
Right.
love's the most powerful emotion, and yet we somehow feel like we need to protect love, that it's risky to love. And love
Mhm.
needs, if love is really so powerful, it needs no protection. And it's okay to unfettered love people, even my son Perry, who's quote risky to love. It's like if the phone rings and my ex-wife Susan says, "Hey, I want to talk to you about Perry," if I see her name, I'm worried that something has happened to him. That's a risky person to love, but it's not really. It's I can still love him wholeheartedly.
How does it feel to come from a place of love when it comes to to Perry, as opposed to shutting him out and pushing him away? How does it feel as a parent to just be accepting of his situation and coming from a place of love as opposed to the opposite?
Yeah, so I wrote a poem about the relentlessness of God's love. And I started to view it as like God's love is like sunshine.
Hmm.
And like I'm in this beach house right now in San Diego, where
Hmm.
we're here for Dory for treatment. And I'm looking out, and literally, I'm looking at the ocean right behind me. I wish I could show you, but it blows out the camera. It's like, but we're on the ocean, and it's in Oceanside, California, and the sun is streaming down. I'm inside. I'm not being hit by the sun, but anytime I want to, I can walk out on the deck, and the sun is there. It doesn't go away. It doesn't chase me. It doesn't go away when I'm not. It's there.
Right.
And this is God's love is relentless. It's always available. It just is. And you can reject it, you can hide from it, or you can step into it and feel it. And so what I want, it the sunlight doesn't judge me, God's love doesn't judge me. What I aspire to is to be that pure love for my children, where my love for them is relentless and permanent, and available to them because it just is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Love that.
obviously I fall short of that. But if I fall short of that, it's because I'm not remembering who I really am, which is love.
I love that. So let's talk about the psychedelics revealed. How far into that documentary series are you?
So we completed that. I was listening to my bio and I'm like, first off, it's too long, and we sent it to you, so I can't.
I did pare it down actually.
It's
But
like this is what happens when somebody wants you to know every single flipping thing they've ever done.
right.
So, and we've done a dozen series since Psychedelics Revealed. Psychedelics Revealed was spectacular, and we learned, again, for me, like MDMA is not a psychedelic, but it's certainly in that class. That was the single most important event of my adult life. And I've watched people benefit greatly from resolving childhood trauma by doing these things. I've also watched people who, like during that series, we took 6 people to Costa Rica to Rhythmia and filmed them and interviewed them daily after they did 4 successive ayahuasca journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really great because we had one person who it was the most horrific experience of his life, that it literally installed some trauma, and to other people who were just rainbows and sunlight. And so gave us a very accurate description. I've now watched a lot of people who've gone down that road and then they just stay on it. Like, I have one friend who's done dozens and dozens and dozens of ayahuasca journeys, and each one is the answer. And then
Mm-hmm.
she does it again, and then she does it again, and I'm
Like,
like,
I thought you already had the answer.
yeah, it's like
Right.
this time God really spoke to you. It's like, how many times do you need that? And so I realized it can easily become another trap that's avoiding dealing with the real issues. So we saw outcomes that were wonderful, and we saw people that ended up, making a house where they should have been passing through, and now they just live there.
Now, with your research on psychedelics, did you find that people that were already addicted to drugs and alcohol, I'm assuming that you studied people that were addicted to drugs and alcohol, as well as people that were just seeking personal development or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, what was the success rate of getting people off of drugs and alcohol if they were to engage in psychedelics?
It's interesting. While we were at Rhythmia, there was an anomaly. They have a weekly cohort, and there was an anomaly that week where like 50% of the people that were there as active addicts trying to get off of whatever they were addicted to. There
Mm-hmm.
was a very high percentage in that cohort of about 100 people. And the staff was talking about how these were the most difficult people to work with. And it was a tumultuous week. We didn't do the follow up to see the outcomes. We're doing a film, not a study. And so we didn't do the
Mm-hmm.
follow up, but I I don't think that it was very high in terms of success rate. I have seen with ibogaine,
Mm-hmm.
yoga, with heroin addicts, that it has a profound effect of breaking physical addiction immediately. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's probably, for opiate addiction, the single most powerful medical intervention that I'm aware of. At the same time, my son Perry's done it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you, even if you break the physical chains of addiction, if you haven't changed internally, then within a few months, people tend to return to their old behaviors.
Well, even if you change internally, you still, in my opinion, my experience anyways, you also have to have the environment to support that internal change, because you make the internal change, and with my understanding with psychedelics, they allow you to change your neural pathways more quickly than abstinence. Abstinence is what worked for me. I've been sober since 2011. However, my experience I've seen with some people, it just they're able to get 10 years of therapy in 6 months or something like that. So they're able to reprogram and create new neural pathways more quickly. However, they have to also change the way that they live their life, change their environment, change the people that they spend their time with. So it's like new eating habits, new sleeping habits, new exercise habits. I pray and meditate, new friends, new hobbies, new interests. I surround myself with a community of people that are aligned with my values and the way that I want to live my life. If I continue doing the things that I was doing before the psychedelic, or before I get clean and sober, or before if I continue, the path of least resistance is always to go back to doing what I was doing before.
Yeah, the mind under stress tends to return to its last place of safety, which is yesterday. But again, I hesitate to even talk with you about this stuff because you're the expert. I mean, like literally, when we were seeking out experts for us to film, you're one of the people that we sought
Right.
out. So it's like
Right.
for me to have a strong opinion on anything is crazy because I'm an observer in your space and you are an actual expert, and you're so right. And environment is everything. Even as you were saying that, I'm picturing you at Optimize. You walk around Optimize, there's not drug addicts, there's not fat people, there's not, this is a group of people
Right.
that look like you. This is people that are beyond healthy. They're going, for people who don't know that, one of the things that you do there, you go in there and do a cold plunge,
Yeah.
and because I just finished my own cold plunge challenge where I did my cold plunge at home every day for the month of March,
Yeah.
every single day. Again, I bought a cold plunge 6 or 8 months ago and never even stuck a toe in it. I could
Right.
not make myself do it. And so finally I got mad and said, I'm going to do this every day for the month of March.
Uh-huh.
And I was out of town 2 days. And so the deal was every day I'm in town. I missed 2 days. And finally, I finished March doing 9.5 minutes a day sitting in the cold plunge. But
Wow.
every single day I had to stand there and I wanted to turn around and walk away, shut the lid back down, not get in it. And the
Uh-huh.
discipline to get in that thing and do it, that changed me forever. So I'm picturing you at Optimize. These are people that are not just avoiding bad things in life. These are people that are reaching out for more, for better, to challenge themselves more. What a great environment.
Yeah, I love it. I was actually there this morning with Max Hansen, and it was amazing. I go there and there's a bunch of people that are focused on wellness and recovery. And it's not like I also work out, I go to the gym, I lift weights, I do high intensity interval training. And the people that I see at F45, for example, they're all into health and fitness. However, it's more than just the health and fitness. It's more than just the physical aspect, which what I get at Optimize, it's mind, body, spirit. It's also mental, emotional, spiritual, which I believe is imperative to my all around health. And so that's one of the reasons why
Yeah,
I love Optimize.
I had to reset my self-image. I started in January doing exercise with oxygen therapy every day for the month of January, and that
Mhm.
habit has continued. And then in March, to every day do the cold plunge, and there was literally a reset. I have so much evidence. It turns out I am the type of person who keeps commitments to himself, and I
Mhm.
did not have that belief in December of last year. But now the evidence is overwhelming that I'm somebody who keeps his commitments to himself. And because I've seen myself do it day after day after day.
So with Perry, what are some of the things that you believe that you've done well that you can share with other parents or other people that have loved ones that are struggling with addiction? Maybe your top three tips that help you stay grounded in your own peace and serenity.
It's really only a top one. And the thing that I'm most proud of is that Perry does not lie to me. And the reason he doesn't lie to me is because I don't require him to lie to me.
Mm.
Instead, it's like when I mentioned, I go, Perry, what are you taking? And Dad, I'm taking everything. He can say that to me because he knows I'm not going to advise him. I'm not going to judge him. I'm not going to tell him, well, you ought to try this, you ought to try that. The I'm there when he asks a question. I've got lots of resources that if he asks for them, I'm delighted to share and help, but I don't put them on him. I don't give him help when he's not asking for it. I don't try to change him and I don't judge him. I I see him as um, a perfect human who's having a difficult journey, who took on a tough assignment, and I wish him well. And this lack of judging and lack of an urgency in me to rescue him or change him is is what I've evolved to. And again, I would yield to you if you said, "Well, Jeff, that's the wrong approach. You're the expert. This is
Right.
just my experience."
How do you, what about staying away from enabling behavior? Because on one hand, you want to love him, you want to accept him, you want him to come to you, you want him to be honest with you. How do you stay away from enabling him? Because I could see that that would potentially be an issue.
And so it's not with he and I because that's not my role, and he's clear. And with his mother, she's such a capable enabler
Mhm.
that it's not required. And it's really it's the it we are the two polar opposites. Like so, he doesn't want that from me or need it from me, but he's getting those. I don't want to call them needs, but we'll call them need. Those his
Mhm.
enabling needs are fully met somewhere else.
Do you have boundaries that that you hold with him?
Oh yes, and the where my mentor taught me dependency breeds contempt 100% of the time. And so a follow up to this is never do for someone what they should be doing for themselves.
Mhm.
And so my mental framework when I deal with friends, when I deal with people I want to help, is how do I help this person without doing something for them that they should be doing for themselves or without creating dependency? Because if I let them become dependent on me, they're eventually going to hate me. And I
Mhm.
love this relationship. I don't want to lose this person. So I cannot let them become dependent on me. And so these are guardrails that are coming up in my mind all the time when somebody asks me for a loan, when somebody asks me for help on something.
Mhm.
My wife and I have a foundation and we put money, 10% of our income goes into the foundation. And so I have money available for any cause that moves my heart all the time. I don't have to check and go, wonder if I can afford it. The foundation either has money in it or it doesn't.
Mhm.
And so we have ways, but even with that, I'm cautious about never doing for someone what they should be doing for themselves. They have a right to the dignity of their fate. They have a
Mhm.
right to their consequences. They have a right for life to teach them the lessons that they've set up for themselves. And I can stand beside them and I can let them lean on me during the storm, but I can't walk their walk for them.
Love that. Love that. Is there a question that you wanted me to ask you today?
No, I'm amazed that I think if we edit out my long-windedness, that you could make about a great 7-minute podcast out of this. We probably covered way too much.
This has been wonderful. This has been wonderful. So, Jeff, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. Hopefully, we shared something with some people that that will help them, parents or people with loved ones. And how can people find out more about you and more about some of the projects you're currently working on?
Yeah, so on our website, jeffhayesfilms.com, we keep that up to date, maybe once every 6 months. And we don't really, I'm always excited to share the things we're doing, because I get to spend my days interviewing experts on topics that I'm interested in. And so, if anybody in the audience finds, topic, if they're interested in the same thing I am, I've got a lot of resources.
Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you. And that's all we've got for this episode. And everybody, thanks for watching. I will see you on the next episode.
If you found this video to be of value, be sure to like it, subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos, leave a comment if you have a question, if you've got something to say. Camelback Recovery provides treatment services for people struggling with mental health, mental illness, addiction, alcoholism. So if you or someone you know is struggling, be sure to reach out to us. You can go to our website, camelbackrecovery.com, or our information is in the comments section below. And we provide everything from detox, inpatient, outpatient treatment, sober living, recovery coaching, sober companion services. So either we'll be able to help you, or we'll be able to refer you to people or treatment centers that might be a better fit. So I will see you in the next video.